he'll just float in between these things. And of course, my body is what sets that up, right? Where I put my body, right, and where his body is too. So if I feel him leaning on one side or the other, I move his body and I fix it up. I'll bring him in, move his body a little bit, floating that rein ever so slightly, back and forth, till I feel him just kind of balance in the center of it. When I let it go, I want him to try to, just kind of stay there without springing back. Real important whenever you're just making a circle or whatever you're doing, if you create the shape, and then when you turn hold of your reins, if that horse springs back the other way, you don't have the shape in their body. You just pulled their head over. Okay? And so, I want to say that again because it's super, super important, I believe, especially in making Hackamore horses, is that if you take and you create a bend in your horse, right? And if you turn loose of that inside that direct rein, and that horse just snaps back, you really didn't have the horse shaped. You had its head pulled over, right? But its body was not, because its body wasn't shaped. When you let go, it springs back. And I think that's a pretty important little fact and piece of information. So, as I'm trying to work with him here, there's a couple of things that I'm really trying to accomplish there. I want to put him in the middle of that Hackamore. Very softly put him in the middle of the Hackamore. And I want his head to kind of be in the middle of his spine as much as possible, not over too much, right? Keeping his body lined up with itself, his shoulders and his hips relatively level. It's going to be, that's going to be a process of time, but I'm working on it from day one. I don't pull his body out of whack and then try to fix it later. So when he gets over here, he bends too much, then my outside rein will come into play. I'll straighten him back out and get him thinking about that. If I can get him to where he'll stay inside of that circle without hitting the sides of it, which is all that Hackamore is, just a circle on his nose, right? I start my colts in a pretty soft one. This one is a Bill Black Hackamore, Bosel, with a Ricochet, so it's really pretty soft. It's latigo cheeked, rawhide nose button, and heel knot. Sent Bill the core for this one because I wanted a certain feel. I want it to maintain its shape, not be so raggy it doesn't maintain its shape, so he can be in between it, but still very soft. If we run into each other, I want to just say excuse me, not get in a wrestling match with him, not try to submit him. A little as I gone here, this starting with this little changes, now he's giving me quite a bit more through his body. If I can get this kind of stuff working, just walking along here real slow, and if I can't get it walking along here real slow, guess what? Going faster is not going to help that prescription. It's not going to make that better. We'll ask for a little bit more. Still trying to keep a good eye on, am I in the center of his back, right? So I don't try to shape the horse in a position where I can't maintain balance in the center of his back. I may come out of that balance for a step, like right there, I took my hip and dropped it into his outside hip, into his left hip, and made his hips come around a little bit more. But I don't go so far that it can't easily return back to center. So that was one movement of my hip, my sit bone, dropping into the right hip, pushing his hip over, catching him a little bit with my left rein to hold his shoulder up and move his hip a little bit more. I'm balancing him here. So if he gets kind of pushy down, like he wants to push down a little bit, I'm going to lift up and I'm going to move his body in an arc and relax. And he may have to put his head back down, right? So I've kept him up here pretty close to me for quite a while. So I'll let him relax, stretch his top line a little bit. But what I don't want to see him is that when I turn loose, when I change the frame work, where the frame is now, that means where the nose button is in relationship to my body, that when I release that, just like I don't want it to spring back, if I've got them in an arc, I don't want them to spring down either. I don't want them to just feel like they've fallen apart, because that means I've just held them up there with power too. Alright, that means I've held him in place. And what I'm trying to do here is not hold him. I'm showing him and then trying to be very, very still when he finds that place.